Okay, this is the second episode in the chord following series. This concept is not that hard to understand once you see what's going on. Basically, any chord is pretty much neutral by itself, and we're going to show you this in a second. But when you're making chord changes, you're free to change the scale to whatever kind of scale fits over that chord. And this is what people usually don't understand. It's usually you get it or you don't, but once that kicks in, you realize, wait a minute, this makes sense. So we're going to go through one chord here, just a C chord. And you're like, well, okay, what scale fits over this C chord? And most of the people will say, well, of course, C major does. That's what's you're going to use. Well, that's not entirely true. Okay, so there we go. We have our famous C major. So that is one option, and everybody pretty much knows the sound of C major, or major in general. Very bright, most of the time very bright. Sometimes these things can be... So I'm just going to do very quick examples, so I don't want this to be very long. So C major will fit over that C major chord. Well, so we'll see Lydian, okay? So these are probably the most obvious. So nothing says, well, over the C chord I can't play C Lydian with that sharp 4 color tone that makes Lydian, okay? So we'll just do the same thing almost every time. That dreamy Lydian sound. I'm doing an open voicing C chord below. So let's change this again. Let's say, well, what else can we use? Of course, Mixolydian. Everybody knows the basic modes, or most everybody. Some people do not. Mixolydian. Okay. And that just has the flat 7th degree. That's the distinguishing feature. Okay, so, and I'll just quickly play through Mixolydian over a C chord. Okay, so knowing these things is very effective in knowing what kind of mood you want to establish. Okay, so let's change things up a little bit. Well, there's also Mixolydian flat 6, the 5th mode of melodic minor. Okay, it's basically just taking Mixolydian and having the 6th flatted. Still fits the C chord. Slightly exotic sound, so play it musically just for a second. And most of the time I'm just using a C spread triad to do this, just to demonstrate. And we're not trying to do great things, we're just showing you what you can use over the top to change your mind about what this scale sounds like. Phrygian dominant. That's basically Mixolydian flat 2, flat 6. So we just flat the 2nd degree. And it's the 5th mode of harmonic minor. Everybody knows this. It has that slightly exotic sound. So just play through it. I'm making sure I'm using every tone too. So very exotic sounding most of the time. So Phrygian dominant. Okay. Okay, Mixolydian flat 2. If you know what harmonic major is, that would be the 5th mode of harmonic major. Okay. It's like Mixolydian above, Phrygian dominant below. So kind of sound. And it's a little bit less. I just want to make sure I use every note, but so I just quick example what it kind of sounds like. So knowing these things will really help you establish the moods and settings you want. Lydian flat 7, okay? That's just Lydian with the flat 7, the 4th mode of melodic minor. So okay. So yeah, it's let's just play a regular high C chord. So that wasn't the greatest example, but it has that kind of almost a playful Lydian sound to it. Most of the time, not every time, but you can use that over a C chord. So C harmonic major, okay. This is basic harmonic minor, but the lower half is major. So it's literally just with a flat 6, C major scale with a flat 6, which gives that upper half like harmonic minor. Okay, so, just quick example of doing it musically. Okay, there we go. Just has a very flat 6-ish kind of sound to it with that augmented second skip, like harmonic minor has. Now, of course, there's stuff like the bebop, major bebop scale, which, I don't know, I don't want to get into the theory behind this, so, but it's another scale that will fit over the top of a C major chord. You could use it as like a passing tone kind of melody in this respect here without using any other harmonies. Okay, so okay, so chromatic passing tone. And you could do something as silly as this. So there you go. There's one use of it. It still fits over the C chord. That's the point. You might just use it as a simple passing tone between runs, okay? That's very common to move in between the 6, flat 6 to regular 6. The diminished scale in the whole tone, whole or half whole setup. So arrange this in the order here real quick. Got to alter things. Remember, it's an 8-note scale, but the C chord will be formed on this scale in this specific arrangement. Okay, draw a flat on that. And there I got a natural the E, so I'm just writing things out really quick here. Okay, there we go. So you can actually use that over a C major chord. There's no rule that says you cannot. Okay, so there's another scale. The chord's very neutral by itself. Major pentatonic. Now, most people know what this is. It's just let's cut out these pentatonic's a 5-note scale. Here's the major pentatonic, and we're going to cover each one later. So I'll at least try to use almost every scale when we chord change. Okay, so just using it real quick. Okay, there's also the C major. You can actually use stuff like a Mixolydian pentatonic. Okay, now I have a pentatonic series and I actually cover these things. I'll link it in this, but here is the Mixolydian pentatonic scale. Okay, so you could seriously use a C major chord. So it just gives a completely different sound. So you notice that every type of scale that we've messed with so far has a completely and totally different sound. Minor pentatonic. I wrote that in really quick there. You hear this in rock all the time. Guitar players use this all the time. So let's just go through it quick. So there we go. Minor pentatonic over a C major scale. Okay. That's very common in rock. The blues scale, it's basically a minor pentatonic with a flat 5. And everybody knows the sound of this. I mean, the second you use it, it sounds bluesy. So we'll just throw in our 5th degree and flat it, and then regular 5. Okay. So everybody knows this sound. Usually played over dominant chords, but you could still use a C major chord. It doesn't matter. I've done it many times in rock solos. So you don't have to have a dominant 7th chord, just that C chord. It works. So here's one I forgot about, and because I wrote all those out earlier, is that the augmented scale also forms a C chord. And I use this all the time as an effect scale when I'm doing orchestral stuff. I may just play a C major chord below. Let's just do the spread and do something like that. And so we're not going to cover it very much, any of the scale ones, any of the scale types very much. So there's so many options you can play over a C major chord. That's how many I can think of off of hand, and I forgot the augmented scale. So there you go. There's how you start to visualize chord changes and chord following. If I could play this many over a C chord, I could play this many over an F chord, I could play this many over a G chord, I could play this many over an A chord, all major chords. So this, when you start changing chords, depending on the mood you want, if you use like the blues scale, you use the C major and then an F major, it's going to sound kind of bluesy. But if you use like a Mixolydian flat 6, it might even sound a little bit more mysterious every time you switch chords and change the scale depending on what type of chord you're on. So well, in that case, major to major. Again, you could, whenever you switch, well, we're going to do this next episode, so we're just going to switch chords, and then we have all these options of what chord choice or what scale choices to use upon that switch from one to the other. Each chord could use a completely different scale. There's no rule that says you cannot do this. And how it will change your perception is every time you land on a chord, whether it's even in key or out of key, your brain can say, well, what scale can I play over the top of this to continue with this sort of feel I want, or change the feel.